other students, kindly face the stage side and sit. Turn your chairs. Which school is this one? The one in uniform? DRDO. DRDO is done. You can face this side and sit. The performing team will occupy the last rows so that immediately after the inauguration you can go and sit. The escort teachers who are not here are requested to bring your teams and assemble for the second day's formal inaugural session. All the escort teachers are requested to assemble with your teams at the program venue. Do not leave the seats empty, children. Come and occupy the front seats, please. KVRW volunteers, if you are here, report here. If the volunteers are here, report on stage to me. KVS Bengaluru region. We are on day 2 of this event and I am honored to welcome today's distinguished dignitaries and guests. May I first welcome on stage Shri D.S. Arun, Honorable Member of Karnataka Legislative Council, who is our chief guest for the day. A round of applause for the guest. I next welcome Shri R. Pramod, Assistant Commissioner, KVSRO Bengaluru. Sir will be honoring us again as a judge. I welcome Shri Manohar Lal Jingar, Principal, KV Hospete. Sir will be the third judge for the day. I also warmly welcome on stage our venue principal, Dr. Srimati Pushpa Rani Yadav ma'am, all the escort teachers, participants who are our young parliamentarians to the day 2 of the 35th National Youth Parliament 2024. May we begin the second day with the lighting of the lamp and a mantra. I request our distinguished guests to join in lighting the lamp, please.
Shuklam Vardharam Vishnum Shashivarnam Chaturbhujam Prasannavadanam Dhyaye Sarvavighnopashantaye Shubham Kurutvam Kalyanam Arogyam Sukha Sampadam Shatru Buddhi Vinashaya Deep Jyoti Namostute Deep Jyoti Parabrahma Deep Jyoti Janardana Deepo Hartu Me Papam Deep Jyoti Namostute.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome back again on the second day of 35th National Youth Parliament Competition, regional level for Bengaluru region. I welcome you all back, and on this occasion, today is the second day, I extend a very warm welcome to Mr. D.S. Arun, Honorable Member of Karnataka Council Assembly, and he is with us, and I request Pramod sir to welcome him. It is an honor for us that he is with us today. He has been an MLC for last 2.5 years from Shivamogga. He has been a BBM graduate and he was district president of JCI Shivamogga, District Chamber of Commerce and Industry. He is the president of Country Club and he is the state general secretary of BJP Shivamogga. So he is a very experienced parliamentarian, and during the conversation at the time of breakfast I came to know that his father was a minister. So he has the politics in that sense, do not take it. He is a parliamentarian in his blood. So he is very experienced and we are very grateful to him that he consented to be the chief guest today, and as one of the judges he will be with us throughout the day. He will observe your performance, and then he will give suggestions how we can select the best team for the zonal level competition. So I welcome you, sir, on behalf of KVRWF family and on behalf of Kendriya Vidyalaya Sangathan Bengaluru region, all the escorts and all the participants. Welcome, sir.
I request the volunteer students to come forward and badge the dignitaries, offer the badge to the dignitaries, please. We are privileged to have you all judges on day 2 of the event. We are thankful that you have taken away time from your busy schedule and you have joined us again to motivate the children to see their performances and give them positive criticism that can enable them to become better speakers, better orators as they go in the days ahead. Thank you, children. 7 teams are performing in the 35th National Youth Parliament Regional Level Bengaluru. Out of that, 4 teams had a pre-lunch session, diet and Congresso performed. In the post-lunch session, Majlis and the Risdag performed. On day 2 today, 3 teams will be performing. To begin with, Jatiya Sansad, followed by Sansad, and the final team to perform will be Duma. Today, in the post-lunch session, keep up the spirit of participation. You young parliamentarians are going to take away a lot from this event. All the best to all of you. We shall begin the event now. Team 1 can take over the positions. I request the judges. A watch has been found. The rightful owner may collect it from the reception after identifying. A watch has been found on the campus today. The rightful owner may contact at the reception and collect it after identifying. Thank you.
Hello.
I welcome all the members to this 35th Youth Parliament session. I hope the session would be fruitful. New elected members to take oath or affirmation. Secretary General, please.
Ms. Shreya, who stands elected from Chikodi constituency of Karnataka, will now take oath of affirmation. Ms. Shreya, please. Ma'am, would you like to take oath of affirmation?
Oath, please.
In which language would you like to take oath?
In Kannada, please. ನಾನು ಶ್ರೇಯಾ ಯುವ ಸಂಸತ್ತಿನ ಸದಸ್ಯೆಯಾಗಿ ಆಯ್ಕೆಯಾಗಿದ್ದೇನೆ. ನನಗೆ ಭಾರತದ ಸಂವಿಧಾನದ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ನಿಜವಾದ ನಂಬಿಕೆ ಮತ್ತು ನಿಷ್ಠೆ ಇದೆ ಎಂದು ದೃಢೀಕರಿಸುತ್ತೇನೆ. ನಾನು ನನ್ನ ಕರ್ತವ್ಯವನ್ನು ನಿಷ್ಠೆಯಿಂದ ಪೂರೈಸುತ್ತೇನೆ ಎಂದು ದೇವರ ಹೆಸರಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಪ್ರತಿಜ್ಞೆ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೇನೆ.
Now, Mr. Siddharth, who stands elected from Tezpur constituency of Assam, will take oath of affirmation. Mr. Siddharth, please. Sir, would you like to take oath of affirmation?
Affirmation, please.
In which language would you like to take affirmation?
In English. I, Siddharth, having been elected a member of lower house of youth parliament, solemnly affirm that I will bear a truth, faith and allegiance to the Constitution of India and by the law established, that I will faithfully discharge the duty upon which I am about to enter.
Esteemed members, it's with profound sadness to inform the House that I learnt about the demise of Ramoji Rao Garu. Ramoji Garu, who was a visionary, died at the age of 87. He has created a space in the hearts of millions of people. This loss is irrevocable. May God give his family the strength to bear this pain of separation. May his soul rest in peace. Om Shanti.
Honorable Speaker, ma'am, we are saddened to hear about the demise of Mr. Ramoji Rao, who was the head of the world's largest and richest production facility, Ramoji Film City. As the opposition leader, I extend my deepest condolences to the bereaved family. A recipient of Padma Vibhushan, he was a visionary who transformed Indian media and made significant contribution to the field of cinema and journalism. Ma'am, through his noteworthy efforts, he set new standards, innovation and excellence in the media. May his soul rest in peace. Om Shanti.
Honorable Speaker, ma'am, the passing away of Sri Ramoji Rao Garu is absolutely heartbreaking. Ramoji Rao was extremely passionate about India's development. I am fortunate to have got several opportunities to interact with him and get benefit from his wisdom. Sri Ramoji Rao's remarkable work and passion for India's development will be remembered forever, and Ramoji Rao's legacy will continue to inspire many. Condolences to bereaved family, friends, and countless admirers during this difficult time. May his soul rest in peace. Om Shanti.
The House may stand in silence for a while to extend our deep sorrow. Of condolences to the bereaved family.
Yes, madam. I will convey the message of condolences to the bereaved family.
Now, Prime Minister to introduce the new ministers.
Honorable Speaker, ma'am, With immense pleasure, introducing to you and through you to the House, my colleagues, the new ministers, Ms. Sabiha, Minister of Mineral and Energy Resources, and Mr. Vipul, Minister of Jal Shakti.
Now, the question hour starts. Question number 101, Ms. Vaishnavi, please.
महोदया, NEP 2020 नई राष्ट्रीय शिक्षा नीति ने हमारी शिक्षा पद्धति को पूरी तरह बदल दिया है। अरे मैं तो कहती हूँ कि पूरी तरह हिला ही दिया है।
Members, please maintain the decorum of the house.
महोदया, हमारे देश में जहाँ हमारे गरीब भाई बहन 2 वक्त की रोटी के लिए प्रतिदिन संघर्ष कर रहे हैं, क्या आप उन्हें अपने बच्चों को शिक्षित करने के लिए मोबाइल, लैपटॉप जैसी महंगी चीजें भी खरीदनी पड़ेंगी? आज
माननीय सदस्य, कृपया सीधे प्रश्न पर आइए।
जी महोदया, मैं शिक्षा मंत्री से पूछना चाहती हूँ कि सरकार नई राष्ट्रीय शिक्षा नीति को सफल बनाने के लिए देश के प्रत्येक स्कूलों में मूलभूत सुविधाओं को सुनिश्चित करने हेतु कौन सी ठोस योजनाएं बना रही है?
एजुकेशन मिनिस्टर प्लीज।
आदरणीय अध्यक्षा जी, मैं यहाँ उपस्थित प्रत्येक व्यक्ति को यह बताना चाहूँगी कि शिक्षा पद्धति में यह बदलाव देश के प्रत्येक विद्यालय एवं छात्र को ध्यान में रखते हुए ही किया गया है। ग्रामीण क्षेत्रों में तकनीकी संसाधनों की उपलब्धता सुनिश्चित करने के लिए विशेष योजनाएं बनाई जा रही है। पिछड़े क्षेत्रों में प्रत्येक छात्र को लैपटॉप, टैब आदि उपलब्ध कराया जाएगा। किसी भी बच्चे की सीखने की प्रक्रिया में रुकावट ना हो, इसलिए सरकार द्वारा पीएम वाणी परियोजना के तहत हाई स्पीड इंटरनेट कनेक्टिविटी प्रदान किया जाएगा। हमारी सरकार विभिन्न छात्रवृत्ति योजनाएं भी बना रही है। निजी स्कूल या कॉलेज में अत्यधिक फीस को नियंत्रण में रखने के लिए भी कदम उठाए जा रहे हैं। शिक्षा शिक्षकों के बिना अधूरी है, इसलिए समय समय पर राष्ट्रीय शिक्षक प्रशिक्षण कार्यक्रम आयोजन किए जाएंगे। इतना ही नहीं बल्कि इसकी प्रभावशीलता को सुनिश्चित करने के लिए नियमित रूप से इसकी जांच भी की जाएगी। सरकार इस बात का पूरा ध्यान रखेगी कि भारत का बच्चा बच्चा अपनी प्रतिभा एवं रुचि के अनुसार ज्ञान हासिल कर सके।
एनी सप्लीमेंट्री क्वेश्चन? यस मेंबर।
अध्यक्ष महोदया, जिस तरह मंत्री जी इसका बखान कर रहे हैं, इसे पूरा करने के लिए तो करोड़ों अरबों रुपए लग जाएंगे। क्या सरकार के पास इतना पैसा है या फिर मात्र आश्वासन से ही काम चलाना पड़ेगा?
एजुकेशन मिनिस्टर प्लीज।
महोदया, शिक्षा के महत्व को ध्यान में रखते हुए हमने इसके लिए भी पर्याप्त बजट आवंटित किया है। 50,000 करोड़ रुपए 50,000 करोड़ रुपए विद्यालय के भवनों, पुस्तकालय एवं प्रयोगशालाओं के निर्माण के लिए आवंटित किए हैं। शिक्षकों के प्रशिक्षण के लिए 18,000 करोड़ रुपए, डिजिटल उपकरणों के लिए 16,000 करोड़ रुपए आवंटित किए हैं। पूरे भारत में प्रत्येक बच्चे को शिक्षा का लाभ मिले, इसके लिए मूलभूत आवश्यकताओं को प्रदान किया जाएगा, जिसके लिए 30,000 करोड़ रुपयों का प्रावधान किया है। माननीय अध्यक्ष जी, शिक्षा के महत्व को ध्यान में रखते हुए हमने जो बजट तैयार किया है वह यह सुनिश्चित करेगा कि भारत के प्रत्येक बच्चे को गुणवत्ता युक्त शिक्षा मिले, जिससे उसका भविष्य उज्जवल हो। अध्यक्षा जी, मैं आशा करती हूँ कि सदन में उपस्थित प्रत्येक व्यक्ति इसका समर्थन करे, क्योंकि चाहे वह किसी विपक्ष के नेता या सदस्य हो, चाहते तो वह भी भारत का उज्जवल भविष्य ही है।
Now we move to question number 102. Mr. Zainuddin, please.
Honorable Speaker, ma'am, the crimes against children in schools and other institutions are increasing day by day due to inadequate safety measures. Has the government devised any specific plans to ensure the effectiveness of the POCSO Act, which would help create a safe environment for children and protect their rights? Specifically, is there a strategy for identifying and monitoring potential offenders, and have solid steps been taken to reduce crimes against children?
Minister of Social Justice and Welfare, please.
The POCSO Act, the government has taken several significant steps. Firstly, adequate provisions are made to avoid re-victimization of child at the hands of judicial system. The Act assigns a policeman in the role of child protector during the investigation process. The Act demands that such steps must be taken, which makes the investigation process as child-friendly as possible, and the case is disposed of within 1 year from the reporting of the offence. It also provides for the establishment of special courts for speedy trials of such cases and matters related to it. To monitor the implementation of the law, the National Commission for the Protection of Child Rights and the State Commission for the Protection of Child Rights have been made the designated authority. Not only this, but Section 42A of the Act also states that in case of inconsistency with the provisions of any other law, the POCSO Act shall override such provisions. Moreover, the Act calls for mandatory reporting of sexual offences and awareness campaigns for children to educate them and their families about their safety and rights.
Any supplementary question? Yes, member.
Honorable Ma'am, implementation of juvenile development provides for juvenile justice care and the protection of children's rights. No such provision exists under the POCSO Act. What does the government have to say about it?
Minister of Social Justice and Welfare, please.
Determination has therefore been vested under the Section 34 of the Act. Madam, there is no doubt that when the age of the victim is to be assessed or ascertained, the provisions of Section 94 of the Juvenile Justice Act are applicable. The provisions of Section 94 Juvenile Justice Act become relevant and are read along with the provisions of POCSO Act as far as the age determination of the victim is concerned. It may be difficult to assess the age of the victim when it appears to be on the borderline. Erring the side of caution, the police may treat such a person as a child and produce him or her before the CWC or special courts under the POCSO Act, as the case may be. This is because these bodies have the authority under the POCSO Act 2012, Section 34, and the Juvenile Justice Act, Section 94, 2015, respectively, to determine the age.
Now, we move to question number 103. Ms. Sadhana, please.
मत मारो, मेरी मौत की वजह सिर्फ इतनी है कि मैं पेशे से एक किसान हूँ। महोदया, आज भी गांव में लोगों की आजीविका का मुख्य आधार कृषि है। जो किसान खुद भूखा रहकर हमारी थाली भरता है, इस सरकार ने उसे अनदेखा किया है। अतः मैं जानना चाहती हूँ कि सरकार ने किसानों के लिए कौन सी कल्याणकारी योजनाएं बनाई है?
Agriculture Minister, please.
किसानों का दर्द भली भांति समझती हूँ, अतः हमारी सरकार ने कृषि विकास हेतु प्रधानमंत्री फसल बीमा योजना तथा प्रधानमंत्री सम्मान निधि से किसानों को आर्थिक संबल देने के साथ साथ सस्ते बीज, उर्वरक तथा तकनीकी सहायता प्रदान करने का सराहनीय कार्य किया है। किसानों को ऋण उपलब्ध करवाने तथा ऊंचे ब्याज दरों से बचाने हेतु नाबार्ड तथा क्षेत्रीय ग्रामीण बैंक स्थापित किए गए हैं, जिनकी सहायता से किसानों को सस्ते ऋण उपलब्ध करवाया जा रहा है। इसके अतिरिक्त हम एकीकृत बागवानी विकास तथा जैविक कृषि पर भी बल दे रहे हैं। साथ ही सिंचाई क्षेत्र बढ़ाने हेतु राष्ट्रीय नदी जोड़ो परियोजना का कार्य भी कुछ वर्षों में पूरा हो जाएगा। हमारा किसान आज नवाचार को अपना रहा है तथा आत्मनिर्भर बन रहा है। मेरा मानना है कि किसान खुशहाल है तो देश खुशहाल है।
Now, question number 104, Mr. Navaneet, please.
Honorable Speaker, Madam, we are well aware of the alarming rates of heat waves in the recent year. When it comes to most heat action plans, they aren't built for local context.
Member, please come to the point.
Yes, Madam. Will the government be pleased to provide us with an accurate information on the adaptive measure taken to mitigate the impact of heat wave on human health and nature?
Minister of Earth Science, please.
Honorable Speaker, ma'am, we have a crystal clear answer for this question. With the severity and frequency of heat waves increasing across the country, governments at various levels, state, district and city have prepared heat action plans. Heat action plan aimed to increase preparedness and lower the adverse impacts of extreme heat by outlining strategies and measures to prepare for address and recover from heat waves. Supported by vulnerability assessment, heat action plans identify areas needing urgent attention and outline actions to mitigate and manage heat wave impacts before, during and after they occur. The plans specify various roles for departments like disaster management, labor and police. They also emphasize the importance of cooling centers for vulnerable groups and advocate for urban planning strategies such as increasing green spaces and shade to protect public health during extreme heat.
Now, question number 106. Mr. Hitesh, please.
महोदया, मेरे हाथ में सिर्फ यह कागज नहीं, देश के युवाओं के साथ हो रहे खिलवाड़ का पर्दाफाश है। मैं मैकेंसी ग्लोबल इंस्टीट्यूट की इस रिपोर्ट के अनुसार 2030 तक एआई के कारण भारत में 46 मिलियन लोगों को अपने रोजगार से हाथ धोना पड़ेगा। ऐसी ही दूसरी विश्व आर्थिक मंच
माननीय सदस्य, कृपया सीधे प्रश्न पर आइए।
महोदया, ऐसी ही दूसरी विश्व आर्थिक मंच रिपोर्ट के अनुसार पिछले 2 वर्षों में एआई के कारण बेरोजगारी 15% बढ़ी है। अतः मैं श्रम एवं रोजगार मंत्री से जानना चाहता हूं कि पहला, क्या सरकार इस बात से अवगत है कि भारत में एआई नौकरी के नुकसान और बेरोजगारी में वृद्धि का कारण बना है? दूसरा, एआई और संचालन के कारण हुए बेरोजगार लोगों के लिए सरकार ने क्या प्रबंध किए हैं?
Honorable Speaker Madam, yes, the government is very well aware of both reports and we have given utmost importance to this report and have taken it up seriously. We are taking proactive steps to address the challenges posed by AI and automation. Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana is a wonderful initiative to provide training and upskilling programs for the workers. Moreover, the National Education Policy 2020, which emphasizes the need for skill development and vocational training. We have also adopted various measures for strengthening of social security nets. To make it more authentic, we are also working with stakeholders to develop a framework. By doing this, adoption of AI and automation will become more responsible and effective.
Now,
महोदया, ग्रामीण विकास के बिना विकसित भारत की कोरी कल्पना करना निराधार है तथा महात्मा गांधी जी का भी मानना था कि भारत की आत्मा गांव में बसती है। लेकिन आजादी के 77 वर्ष बीत जाने के बाद भी आज गांव बदहाल है। क्या गांव के लोगों ने इस सरकार को वोट नहीं दिया? क्या गांव से सरकार को काली कमाई नहीं हो पाती? यदि ऐसा नहीं है तो मंत्री जी अपनी चुप्पी तोड़े और नाकाम नीतियों का बखान करें।
हमारी सरकार गांधी जी के मूल्यवान विचारों से प्रेरित होकर ही काम कर रही है तथा ग्रामीण क्षेत्र के विकास में तेजी लाने पर जोर दे रही है। मैंने गांव की बदलती तस्वीर और तकदीर देखी है। ग्रामीण क्षेत्र में शिक्षा व स्वास्थ्य जैसे बुनियादी ढांचे को बेहतर बनाने हेतु सर्व शिक्षा अभियान और आयुष्मान भारत जैसी योजनाएं लाभकारी व प्रभावी सिद्ध हो रही है। महोदया, आज ग्रामीण क्षेत्र में वह सभी मूलभूत सुविधाएं मौजूद है जो पहले सिर्फ शहरों तक ही सीमित रहती थी, जैसे अस्पताल, विद्यालय, मोबाइल, लैपटॉप, बेहतर सड़क, कृषि उपज मंडी, शॉपिंग मॉल, शौचालय आदि की सुविधाएं मौजूद है। साथ ही उज्ज्वला गैस योजना और हर घर नल योजना ग्रामीण क्षेत्र की महिलाओं के लिए वरदान साबित हुई है। इसके अतिरिक्त ग्रामीण क्षेत्र की प्रतिभा को निखारते हेतु मेधावी छात्रों को साइकिल व लैपटॉप का निःशुल्क वितरण तथा खेल क्षेत्र में ग्रामीण ओलंपिक खेलों का आयोजन प्रतिवर्ष किया जा रहा है। महोदय, ग्रामीण क्षेत्र के बारे में विपक्ष की जो भी गलत अवधारणा बनी हुई है वह इसीलिए है क्योंकि इन्हें गांव गए बरसों बीत चुके हैं। मैं तो कहती हूँ एक बार आप भारत के किसी भी गांव में जाइए, आपकी गलतफहमी दूर हो जाएगी।
Honorable Speaker, sir, a serious breach of privilege has been committed by one of the senior members of the opposition party. The surname of the Honorable Prime Minister has been defamed by the member, which raises important questions about freedom of speech, parliamentary privileges and the limits of criticism. I therefore request you to raise a question on that matter now.
Ms. Shraddha, have you given a notice of it earlier?
you may give a due notice along with the copy of newspaper cutting and the statement made by the opposition member. If recorded, I shall consider it. You cannot spring a surprise on me like this.
Sir, I have already given the notice of it today before the scheduled time.
It will be examined when it comes to me. I shall consider it and let you know my decision. Now, papers to be laid on the table. Minister of Law and Justice, please.
Sir, I beg to lay on the table a copy of Family Codes Amendment Bill 2023. Under Section 103 of Family Codes 1984, the Act allows state government to establish family code. The Act seeks to amend the Act of 1984 by inserting a provision in Section 103 to provide for the establishment of family codes in the state of Himachal Pradesh with the effect from 15 February 2019 and in the state of Nagaland with the effect from 12 September 2008. It also seeks to insert a new Section 3A to retrospectively validate all actions under the said Act taken by the state governments of Himachal Pradesh and Nagaland and the family codes of those states prior to the commencement of Family Codes Amendment Act 2023.
Minister of Tourism, please.
Sir, I beg to lay on the table a copy of Indian Antarctic Bill 2023 to provide the national measures for protecting the Atlantic environment, department and associated ecosystem, and to give effect to the Antarctic Treaty. The Convention on the Conservation of Antarctic Marine Living Resources is to protocol the Antarctic environment and protection to the Antarctic Treaty, therewith incidental or thereto.
Secretary General to report the message from the upper chamber of the Youth Parliament.
Yes, sir. I have to report the following message received from the Secretary General of the Upper Chamber of the Youth Parliament. I am directed to inform you that the Central Universities Amendment Bill 2024 has been passed by the Upper Chamber on its session held on 8th August 2024.
Secretary General to lay on the table a copy of the bill as passed by the Upper Chamber.
Sir, I lay on the table the bill as passed by the Upper Chamber of the Youth Parliament.
Honorable members, I have an announcement to make. I have a great pleasure in extending a warm welcome to Mr. Riek Machar, Vice President of South Sudan. Mr. Saito Ken, Minister of Environment from Japan. And Ms. Kanchana Jayawardene, Minister of Foreign Affairs from Sri Lanka. We wish them a happy stay in our country. Now, we move on to the calling attention motion. Ms. Bhumika, please.
आंधी तो गुजर गई लेकिन तालुकुन के निशान बाकी है, बस्ती तो उजड़ गई लेकिन अभी कुछ मकान बाकी है। एक एक पैसा जोड़कर उसने आशियाना बनाया था, एक एक पैसा जोड़कर उसने आशियाना बनाया था। बाढ़ सब कुछ बहा कर ले गई पर कुछ बिखरा सामान बाकी है। महोदय, मैं आपके माध्यम से शीश महल में सोई हुई सरकार को जगाने आई हूँ, जिसको बरसात में पकोड़े खाना तो अच्छा लगता है, जिसको बरसात में पकोड़े खाना तो अच्छा लगता है, पर देश भर में उपजे बाढ़ के हालात देखते समय मोतियाबिंदा हो जाता है। जिसको फल सब्जी ढाबे वालों के नाम जानना तो अच्छा लगता है, लेकिन बाढ़ में बह गए लोग पराए लगते हैं। पिछले 2 महीनों से लगातार विभिन्न हिस्सों में बाढ़ का कहर जारी है। विशेषकर केरल व कर्नाटक राज्यों में भूस्खलन और सैकड़ों लोगों की मौत तथा 3 लाख से ज़्यादा लोग बेघर हो गए हैं। अतः मैं सरकार का ध्यान उन पीड़ित परिवारों की ओर आकर्षित करना चाहती हूँ तथा पूछना चाहती हूँ, इन सब के लिए कौन जिम्मेदार है? ऐसे हालातों पर सरकार मौन क्यों है? क्या मंत्री जी के पास कोई जवाब है?
मिस श्वेता, प्लीज।
तो प्राकृतिक आपदाओं के सामने किसी का जोर नहीं चलता, लेकिन मेरा मानना है कि इस साल हुई जान और माल की हानि राज्य सरकार की लापरवाही का परिणाम है। इस आपदा का मुख्य कारण राज्य सरकार द्वारा प्रोत्साहित अंधाधुंध वनों की कटाई है। साथ ही साथ यह क्षेत्र इकोलॉजिकल सेंसिटिव जोन के अंतर्गत आता है तथा हमने IIT बॉम्बे, IIT कानपुर तथा IIT चेन्नई के शोधकर्ताओं के माध्यम से 3 वर्ष पहले ही राज्य सरकार को चेतावनी जारी की थी, परंतु राज्य सरकार ने इस पर कोई ध्यान नहीं दिया। फिर भी हमारी सरकार अपनी जिम्मेदारी निभा रही है। भारतीय नौसेना व कोस्ट गार्ड्स की सहायता से ऑपरेशन मदद कार्य जारी है तथा NDRF की 25 टीमें इस बचाव कार्य में लगी हुई है। हमारी सरकार पीड़ित परिवारों के लिए तथा अपनी जान गंवाने वालों के प्रति संवेदनशील है। इसलिए हमारी सरकार ने प्रधानमंत्री राहत कोष से मृतकों के परिवार को 5 लाख रुपए तथा पीड़ित लोगों को 50,000 रुपए की सहायता राशि प्रदान की है। सिर्फ यही नहीं, हमारी सरकार ने साथ ही साथ राज्य सरकार को भी 2000 करोड़ की सहायता राशि प्रदान की है। भविष्य में इस प्रकार की कोई हानि न हो सके, इसके लिए हमारी सरकार राष्ट्रीय स्तर पर नेशनल डिजास्टर मैनेजमेंट प्लान पर तेजी से कार्य कर रही है। महोदया, मुझे उम्मीद है यदि राज्य सरकारें साथ देंगी तो भविष्य में इस प्रकार के हालात देखने को नहीं मिलेंगे।
Now we move on to the adjournment motion. श्रीमान अब्दुल वाहब कृपया कार्य स्थगन प्रस्ताव प्रस्तुत करें।
अध्यक्ष महोदया, मैं कार्य स्थगन प्रस्ताव के लिए सदन की अनुमति का आपसे निवेदन करता हूं। मुझे अनुमति प्रदान करें।
अनुमति है।
महोदया, मैं इस सदन का ध्यान सरकार द्वारा शुरू की गई राष्ट्रीय मुद्रीकरण पाइपलाइन की तरफ आकर्षित करना चाहता हूं। इस योजना के अंतर्गत सरकार अगले 4 वर्ष तक सार्वजनिक उपक्रमों का निजीकरण करना चाहती है। इनमें सड़क, रेलवे, बिजली, दूरसंचार, खनन, विमानन, बंदरगाह, प्राकृतिक गैस, पेट्रोलियम आदि शामिल है। अगर इन उपक्रमों को प्राइवेट कंपनियों के हवाले कर दिया तो देश में निजी कंपनियों का एकाधिकार हो जाएगा, जिनका उद्देश्य केवल धन कमाना है। अतः इस पर चर्चा करने के लिए मैं सदन में स्थगन प्रस्ताव लाने की सशक्त मांग करता हूं।
फाइनेंस मिनिस्टर प्लीज।
माननीय अध्यक्ष महोदया, किसी भी देश की अर्थव्यवस्था के लिए सरकारी और निजी दोनों क्षेत्रों की भागीदारी महत्वपूर्ण होती है, जिनको चलाने से देश का वित्तीय घाटा बढ़ने के साथ साथ राजस्व पर भी अतिरिक्त बोझ पड़ रहा है। माननीय महोदया, राष्ट्रीय मुद्रीकरण पाइपलाइन सरकार द्वारा शुरू की गई एक महत्वपूर्ण योजना है, जिसका उद्देश्य, मैं दोहराती हूँ, जिसका उद्देश्य केवल बुनियादी ढांचे का मुद्रीकरण करना है। यह योजना निजी क्षेत्रों की भागीदारी को बढ़ावा देकर उनके साथ साझेदारी करके सरकारी संपत्तियों को और अधिक कुशलता से उपयोग करने के लिए है। इस योजना के तहत हमें केवल परिसंपत्तियों का मुद्रीकरण करना है, उन्हें बेचना नहीं। महोदया, इस योजना से 25 लाख करोड़ रुपयों के निवेश के अवसर पैदा होंगे। अतः इस योजना को देश के विकास और अर्थव्यवस्था के लिए कल्याणकारी कहा जा सकता है और सिर्फ इसीलिए मैं इस कार्य स्थगन प्रस्ताव के पक्ष में नहीं हूं।
मिस्टर श्रेयस प्लीज।
महोदया, यह योजना युवाओं के भविष्य को अंधकार में डालने वाली है, अतः मैं इसके पक्ष में नहीं हूं एवं इस पर चर्चा की सशक्त मांग करता हूं।
सदन के जो सदस्य में हैं, वे कृपया खड़े हो जाएं। श्रीमान अब्दुल वाहब, इस प्रस्ताव को सदन का समुचित कम से कम 1/10 सदस्यों का समर्थन हासिल नहीं है, अतः आपके इस स्थगन प्रस्ताव की मांग को निरस्त किया जाता है। Now we move on to the legislative business. Honorable Home Minister, to please introduce the bill.
Madam, I beg to move for the leave to introduce One Nation, One Election bill.
Now, the question is that leave be granted to introduce the bill. Those who are in favor will say aye. Aye. Those who are against it will say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. The ayes have it. The motion is granted.
Honorable Speaker Madam, as we all know that one nation, one election is a proposal under the consideration by the Government of India to synchronize all the election in the country, either on a single day or within a specific time. This is one of the most notable proposals by our government. The desirability of simultaneous elections can be discussed from the perspective of cost, governance, administrative convenience and social cohesion. Clause number 1, reduced electoral expenditure. It is estimated that the cost of conducting Lok Sabha election for the central government is around 4,000 crore rupees. I repeat, 4,000 crore rupees. Each state would also cost a considerable amount of money depending upon the size of the state. While this is the official data by the Government of India, expenditure by the political parties and politicians manifold times higher. One nation, one election would entail a reduction in these costs. Clause number 2, policy continuity and better governance. There are at least 5 to 6 state elections which happen every year in India, which results in political parties and politicians always being in a permanent campaign mode, which acts as a hindrance to the policy making and governance. Clause number 3, the Model Code of Conduct. The Model Code of Conduct is enforced during the election time, which usually ranges from 45 to 60 days, wherein no new schemes or project can be announced by the centre or the concerned state government. Clause number 4, better resource allocation. Political parties and politicians can allocate their precious resources like time and manpower more efficiently if the elections are held together, optimizing their campaigns. Clause number 5, the administrative machinery of each district slow down during the election time, having the primary focus on the conduct of election. Clause number 6, there are also paramilitary forces which are withdrawn from the area they are posted in and deployed in the concerned state for the smooth conduct of election. So, one nation, one election would ensure that political parties and politicians are more focused on policy making and governance rather than being preoccupied by election campaigning, potentially leading to better governance outcome.
Now, the House takes up for consideration of One Nation, One Election Bill 2024. Ms. Tanishka, please.
Nation, one election. I consider this proposal as undemocratic and a threat to the federal structure. Article 83(2) says that the tenure of the Lok Sabha shall be for 5 years unless dissolved earlier. Article 75(3) says that the tenure of the state assemblies shall be for 5 years unless dissolved earlier. The responsibility of the legislature is outlined in Article 172, which states, in a federal parliamentary democracy, the Council of Ministers in the state government and the central government shall be collectively responsible to the House of the People and to the Legislative Assembly in accordance with Article 164(2) of the Constitution. However, the state assemblies can only be dissolved for specific reasons that are in accordance with Article 356 of the Constitution. Dissolving would be a violation of the Constitution. One nation, one election raises fundamental questions about governance. What would happen if the government collapses in the middle of its tenure? Would elections be held in all the states again, or would president's rule be imposed? It's not easy for India to persist in simultaneous elections. Forcing elections into simultaneity is not just a technical matter of adjusting legislative terms, but it involves significantly curtailing the rights of the state. According to Niti Aayog, a policy think tank of the Government of India, in the last 30 years, I repeat 30 years, there has not been a single year without an election to either a state assembly, Lok Sabha or both. One nation, one election is a blow to the Constitution.
Ms. Mehevi, one nation, one election is a step towards unified democracy. It can transform India's electoral landscape. I strongly advocate the idea of implementation in this concept. India has witnessed 45 Lok Sabha elections for 20 assembly elections and 16,000 plus local body elections were held. According to the Election Commission of India, the estimate cost of conducting these simultaneous elections is around 5,000 crore rupees. I repeat, 5,000 crore rupees. Consolidated elections streamline the electoral process and minimize the administrative hassles. Simultaneous election promotes unified national agenda. Also, it encourages parties to focus on broader issues. Let all of us embrace this missionary concept and pave the way for unified, prosperous India.
Of one nation, one election. I question the integrity of one nation, one election, which diverts from its original intent. It revolves around the alteration of fixed term and state legislative assemblies, which is proclaimed as breaking the basic structure of the constitution. It also necessitates extensive legal arguments to the modification of the Constitution and Representation of People Act 1951. Having a fixed tenure of 5 years in the Lok Sabha and the state legislative assemblies will therefore require constitutional amendments to Article 83, 85, 172 and 174 that deals with the duration and disintegration of the government. Another challenge permits to the logical and manpower management in comprising procurement of equipment such as EVMs and VVPATs, deployment of polling personnel and maintenance of security forces. I would like to remind you all that Constitution is not just a living document. It reflects of its people's aspirations, challenges, social values and most importantly, efficiency and relevancy for generations to come. So such an illogical concept will never be accepted by people of a democratic country.
They support the idea of one nation, one election, as it's a powerful idea for a stronger and more efficient democracy. When the first elections to Lok Sabha took place in 1951-1952, 53 political parties contested in the elections. Around 1,874 candidates participated and the poll expenses were of 11 crores. Then, in 2019 elections, 610 political parties contested in the elections and around 9,000 candidates participated. Poll expenses of around 60,000 crores as per Association Democratic Reforms are yet to be declared by the political parties. While the initial infrastructure investments are required, using the same electoral roll for all elections can save considerable time and money in maintaining and updating voters' lists. Simultaneous elections alleviate citizens' concerns regarding missing names from electoral rolls. Using consistent electoral rolls for all elections can provide citizens with the most straightforward and reliable voting experience. Massive redeployment of police and paramilitary forces during elections incurs significant costs and diverts key law enforcement personnel from doing their critical duties. Simultaneous elections can curtail these deployments, optimizing resources and enhancing law enforcement efficiency. Fixed interval elections also have the potential to reduce horse trading done by elected representatives. So, let's all align our electoral calendars and work towards a more prosperous and united nation.
Mr. Mangesh, please.
आदरणीय महोदया, मैं एक राष्ट्र एक चुनाव के इस क्रांतिकारी विचार का समर्थन करता हूं। एक शक्तिशाली व मजबूत लोकतंत्र के लिए एक राष्ट्र एक चुनाव बेहद जरूरी है। यह बदलाव राष्ट्र के लोकतांत्रिक प्रक्रियाओं को सुव्यवस्थित करने के लिए लाभकारी है। चुनाव की आवृत्ति को कम करके हम प्रचार पर कम और विकास पर अधिक ध्यान केंद्रित कर सकते हैं। एक एकीकृत चुनाव प्रणाली को अपनाकर चुनाव में होने वाले खर्च को कम करके हम जन सुविधाओं को बढ़ावा दे सकते हैं। एक बुद्धिमान व्यक्ति यह जानता है कि भारत जैसे विशाल लोकतांत्रिक देश में बार बार चुनाव कराना कितना महंगा सौदा है। सभी चुनावों को एक साथ कराने से देश के मूल्यवान संसाधनों तथा व्यर्थ होने वाले कीमती समय को बचाया जा सकता है। एक एकीकृत चुनाव प्रणाली बेहतर शासन और नीति निर्माण को जन्म दे सकती है। स्वीडन, बेल्जियम, जर्मनी और फिलीपींस जैसे अनेक देशों में एक साथ चुनाव कराने की प्रथा पहले से ही मौजूद है, तो हमारे देश में क्यों नहीं? विपक्ष को लगता है कि एक साथ चुनाव लागू करने से संविधान की बुनियादी संरचना में महत्वपूर्ण बदलाव होंगे। यह संघवाद की गारंटी के खिलाफ होगा और संसदीय लोकतंत्र को नष्ट कर देगा। यह अवधारणा बिल्कुल गलत है। आइए अधिक समृद्ध और मजबूत राष्ट्र की दिशा में सभी दल मिलकर सहयोग करें और एक विकसित भारत की नींव को मजबूत करें।
Honorable Speaker, Madam, I stand against the so-called revolutionary idea of one nation, one election. The government asserts that simultaneous elections will reduce the expenditure by governments, but it may not affect expenditure by political parties, which is one of the reasons for corruption in politics. Regarding the elections to the local government in India, there are several other challenges. These elections are state subjects and hence cannot be controlled nationally. Currently, these elections are controlled by State Election Commission, and bringing them under simultaneous elections will require further constitutional amendment. I question the practical aspect of actually having simultaneous elections, which will require constitutional and statutory amendments with regard to terms of various assemblies and parliament. I strongly believe that such an idea is politically motivated because simultaneous elections may influence voters' behavior. Voters will end up voting on national issues even in state elections. Local and regional parties, which many times represent the interest of local economic and social groups, generally ignored by the central government, may be marginalized. This will impact the depth and the diversity of the Indian democracy. Frequent elections where politicians have to face the voters more than once every year, increasing accountability as well as creating many jobs related to elections. This is important for the grassroots economy. But if simultaneous elections are held, India will have to sacrifice these things.
From Blue, the concept of simultaneous election in India dates back at least to 1983, when it was first proposed by the Election Commission of India. However, India initially conducted simultaneous election for both the Lok Sabha, House of People and state legislative assemblies in 1951 and 1952. But unfortunately, this cycle of simultaneous election was disrupted due to premature dissolution of some political parties in 1968 and 1969. In 1970, the Lok Sabha itself was dissolved ahead of the schedule, leading to fresh elections in 1971. So, in the end, I would like to conclude by saying that one nation, one election is the need of the hour. It is a way to more economically efficient and politically stable India. Thank you.
The One Nation, One Election Bill 2024 be taken into consideration. Those who are in favor will say aye. Aye. Those who are against it will say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. Now, clause by clause consideration. The question is that the clauses 1 to 6 stand part of the bill. There is an objection by Ms. Shravani about clause 5. Ms. Shravani, are you moving it?
Stop.
Now, the question is that the clauses 1 to 6 stand part of the bill. Those who are in favor will say aye. Aye. Those who are against it will say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted.
Madam, I move the bill be passed.
Motion moved that the bill is passed. Those who are in favor will say aye. Aye. Those who are against it will say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. Now it's time for the House to take up private members' resolution. Mr. Gautam, please.
Honorable Speaker, Madam, I would like to present this proposal before the House. 1. The new pension scheme should be abolished and the old pension scheme should be implemented. 2. Concrete plans should be made to secure the future of the government employees and their dependents. Madam, the NPS scheme started from 1st April 2004 is filled with the nominees. It just doesn't seem to be in their interest. And the main reasons are 1. Deduction of 10% from the employees' salaries for their pension. 2. Pension payment as per the stock market situation. 3.
to provide the facility of family pension to the dependents of the employees in case of death during service.
Opposition leader, Ms. Omshika, please.
अध्यक्षा जी, एक सरकारी कर्मचारी अपनी पूरी जवानी देश के विकास और लोक कल्याणकारी कार्यों में लगाता है ताकि रिटायरमेंट के बाद उसका और उसके परिवार का जीवन सुकून से कट सके। मैम, सेवानिवृत्ति के बाद मिलने वाली पेंशन से वो अपना घर बनाना या अपने बच्चों की शादी करने जैसे महत्वपूर्ण जिम्मेदारी निभाता था। ओल्ड पेंशन स्कीम रिटायर होने वाले कर्मचारियों को वित्तीय सुरक्षा देती थी, जिससे उसका बुढ़ापा किसी पे बोझ नहीं बनता था। रिटायरमेंट के बाद भी वो सम्मान का जीवन जी सकते थे। लेकिन ये न्यू पेंशन स्कीम ने तो कर्मचारियों के भविष्य पर ही प्रहार किया है। महोदया, आज एक सरकारी कर्मचारी अपनी सामाजिक जिम्मेदारी जरूर निभा रहा है, लेकिन वो अपने और अपने परिवार के भविष्य की चिंता से मर रहा है। महोदया, ऐसा कर्मचारी जिसका मनोबल टूट गया हो, वो अपनी बेहतर कार्य क्षमता का प्रदर्शन कैसे कर पाएगा? और अगर उसकी असमय मृत्यु हो गई तो उस दशा में उसके परिवार का सहारा कौन बनेगा? Speaker ma'am, because of all these demerits, government employees are distressed and frustrated about their retired life. So, I recommend to take these necessary steps for the betterment and welfare of the employees after the retirement. First, GPF facilities should be adopted as that of old pension scheme. Second, provision of minimum pay that is at least 50% of the last drawn salary. Third, family pension for the dependents after the employment. Thank you, ma'am.
Prime Minister, please.
राजस्व कोष पर पड़ने वाले वित्तीय भार को कम करने हेतु यह फैसला केंद्र सरकार ने लिया था, जिसे उन राज्यों में भी लागू किया गया है जहां हमारे पार्टी की सरकार भी नहीं है। सभी कर्मचारीगण इस समाज का अभिन्न हिस्सा है, जिनके कंधों पे देश के विकास का भार है और हम उनका भविष्य चिंताओं से मुक्त देखना चाहते हैं। महोदया, न सिर्फ हमें कर्मचारीगण की चिंता है, बल्कि सरकार एक निर्धारित बजट में समाज के शोषित, पिछड़े और वंचित समूह का जीवन स्तर सुधारने का भी प्रयास कर रही है। फिर भी यदि सरकार को ऐसी आवश्यकता महसूस होती है जिससे कर्मचारियों के बेहतर भविष्य के लिए सरकार कोई प्रयास कर सकती है, तो अवश्य किया जाएगा। परंतु वर्तमान परिप्रेक्ष्य को समझते हुए वर्तमान में चालू पेंशन योजना ही सबसे बेहतर विकल्प है।
Mr. Gautam, please.
Honorable members, for lending support to my resolution in view of all the assurance given by the Honorable Prime Minister. And since NPS is providing alternative facilities to the government employees, it is also benefiting them in many other ways. I may be allowed to withdraw this resolution.
I want to know whether all the members of the House agree upon the withdrawal of the bill. Yes. The resolution by leave is withdrawn. Now, the House is adjourned to meet again tomorrow at 11 a.m.
Hello.